Lokati here. Today we're going to go over our Blood Mage Spark build. This is a Widowhail Quiver Spark as opposed to many other popular Spark builds out there. We're taking advantage of massive amounts of proj speed scaling as well as the Amanamu Desecrated mod, which is crit damage bonus against enemies within 2 meters. And we're going to go ahead and run a full-blown build. This is about, not even full blown, we're going to run about a 75% build. This is like a 30 div budget build through a T4 Xesht to see how it does. And then we're going to run a more budget oriented build, which would be maybe a 5 to 7 div investment into the build after that. So you can kind of see the differences. Build play is pretty straightforward. In the full-blown version of the build, you're just spamming spark out. If you don't have any cold infused sparks, you are going to need to get cold infused sparks using frost bomb to do that. Once you get a cold infused spark, typically you're just going to be freezing everything and getting your infusions from freezing them and critting them and snap, things like that. And so once you have an infusion, the infusions tend to perpetuate themselves pretty well. But if you run out of infusions for whatever reason, you can just use frost bomb to get another infusion. And cold infused sparks are the ones that we're going to be doing the most damage with. So we do want to get a cold infused spark anytime we possibly can. If there is a particularly tanky target, you're going to kill them using frost bomb to expose for a massive 50% plus exposure, along with curse for a 50% curse, and your sigil of power that you stand in and do a tremendous amount of more spell damage from your 4-stack sigil of power. Now we are converting all of our costs to life costs. We're using bloodletting again to scale our extra as and embitter to convert extra physis to extra cold. And as you can see, it does pretty well. We are very tanky. When I say very tanky, currently we're sitting at 4,500 life per second. This gets up to 7,000 life per second. We have Zealot's Oath, so life per second pours over into our energy shield. We have 3,200 life, 4 KES, and so we are very, very tanky. You will be very happy with your ability to survive one-shots, mini hits, swarms, etc. On top of that, we are leeching somewhere in the range of 5k life per second. And we get, obviously, life remnants from the Blood Mage Ascendancy. And so survivability, you'll find, is very, very good on the build in general. Clear is awesome. Single target is good, but it's not one-shot single target. So you are going to have to prep. So get your catalyst down, or sorry, get your infusions down, use your flask to start scaling up your life regen before the boss spawns, and you get your leech out. Make sure you are cursing the boss, make sure you're exposing the boss, make sure you're sitting in your sigil of power. We do freeze almost everything, and the damage is absolutely solid. Goodbye, Xeshti. Alright, let's take a look and see how we do in a T4 Xesht. This again is the lower budget version of the build. We have sacrificed Undying Hate Tech Rod and not always Bloodletting. There goes 22 div from the build, making this about a 5 to a 10 div budget to put together. Normally we would use a Soul Tether here to overleech ES, but I don't have the resistances to do that, so we're not going to do that. And then we replace our ring with a Call of the Brotherhood so that we have more freezes, which means more frost infusions, which means more damage. Our passive tree changes a little. We do not want to run overzealous. This is way too much life cost for us. So we move those points down here into storm charged and all natural. Outside of that, everything else roughly stays the same. You do want to make sure you always start map off with a couple of infusions. So drop a frost bomb and then start sparking. As you're moving through whatever map you're on, it always helps just to drop a frost bomb like off into the distance while you're playing. It's got a relatively short cooldown, and the extra cold infusions can really speed things up. And the frost bomb itself does still drop a huge frost exposure, which makes things, of course, die faster, which is what we all want. Now, without the belt, I have 0 ES recovery, which means I have to rely entirely on freeze to to maintain my energy shield. You can see right there we got hit, and so we lost our ES, so we'll have to wait for that to recharge. Generally speaking, everything is going to be frozen, so you don't have to deal with getting hit with anything. You mostly just don't want to stand in explosions or degens or anything like that while you're running around. The freeze on it is just super strong, and if you do get a little bit behind, you can just drop a power right there and use that to push out a bunch of really super charged up sparks that can help get the map cleared so you can get caught up. Collect our loot and go do Xesht. On Xesht, you do want to make sure that you are keeping your Frostbomb on cooldown so that you have more cold infusions for the boss, and keep the curse up on the boss. And stand in the Sigil of Power as much as you can. We do not, unfortunately, have any way to out-recover Xesht damage, so you are going to have to dodge most things or stop DPSing if you do get hit by something. Make sure you get your Frost infusions down again. And then dodge all of the frost that you can. Don't forget your curse. Don't forget your Sigil of Power. And collect your loot. Now let's take a look at the POB. First thing we're going to go over is items, and then skills, and then our passive tree. For items, we're going to be running a Widowhail build. The Widowhail gives us increased bonuses gained from our equipped quiver. You can go about this two different ways. Number one, you can get a 250% Widowhail quiver if you just are looking for, well, not even that. At the very bottom breakpoint, you can get a 230% Widowhail quiver equals 2 times 3.5, so 7 levels of spark with 20% anoint. A 250% Widowhail equals 7 levels of spark without anoint. 280% Widowhail quiver equals 8 levels of spark with 20% anoint. And a 300% Widowhail quiver equals 8 levels of spark without anoint. So in both of these situations, you could anoint a damaging anoint instead. Probably the most powerful offensive one is Cooked right here, which is 60% crit damage bonus, 25% reduced global defenses. Probably the most powerful non-penalizing one would be Distracted Target, which is 50% increased critical hit chance against blinded enemies. But these would be your Widowhail breakpoints. So we'll go Widowhail breakpoints. So these are what you need to be looking at for your Widowhail. On your quiver, you're looking for a proj speed, +2 proj, and then desecrating it for crit damage bonus against enemies within 2 meters. This quiver is so insanely easy to make. Please, 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 for the love of God, do not buy it. Buy for 1 Exalted Orb, a tier 2, a tier 2 proj speed quiver. Then for 5 exalted orbs, buy a +2 proj quiver. Slam them together in a recombinator, you got a 25% chance of success. If you're just like unlimited budgeting, you can buy a perfect T1 proj speed, but then you've only got a 4% chance of the recom, and that's long and annoying. If you ignore that completely and you just get the T2, it's like a 1 in 4. Very simple. And then desecrate it, get a reroll mod, and guarantee an Amanamu. Amanamu or Kurgle? Hold on. I don't remember which one this is. You actually have 2 choices, so we'll talk about those 2 choices right now while we're looking this up. So you can either do crit hit chance against enemies 6 meters away or critical strike bonus damage against enemies nearby. Now, generally speaking, I would rather have more damage against enemies that get closer to me than just praying that everything dies off screen and utilizing that crit to accomplish that goal. You can do whichever one you want to. So it is a Amanamu for the crit bonus damage, or Kurgle for the crit hit chance. So your choice there. Use an omen to guarantee the mod, desecrate it, reveal it, you get the mod. It's very, very simple. So no complication there as far as getting that put together. For our helmet, we're just looking for an ES helmet with life and resistances. Very simple. Try finding one like this. Get a cheap 300 ES helmet that has an open prefix, and then desecrate reroll for life. Very easy way to get an incredibly strong helmet for cheap. The robe is also an easy craft. The robe, you just want to get a vial robe. You buy a whole bunch of them. Perfect transmute all of them until you get T1 energy shield. And then homogenize perfect exalt with double exalted to get the other 2 T1 mods. You're done with the prefixes. Then you're going to desecrate on the suffixes. Ideally, you'll desecrate on a resist, and then you'll homogenize, exalt, double exalt the resistance, and hopefully get resistances. We got super unlucky, and we got life on the prefix instead of mana, which would have made it easier to do the suffixes. And then we, unfortunate, rolled 2 relatively bad suffixes for us on the back. But these robes are easy to make. You could just remake and remake until you get a good one. The gloves here are a little bit on the expensive side. You do not need 100% increased effective socketed items on the low end, but it is very strong. It gives us 8% cast speed and 40% more increased effective arcane surge. You just get a 2 socketed base, and you do the same thing as we did on the robes, and you're just going to homogenize craft and then perfect essence to get that mod on there. For your boots, you just want movement speed, life, resistance boots. These are typically very easy to come by, so I don't craft these. For your amulet, you want an amulet with spirit. It's got to have at least 30 spirit. The more spirit is better. It lets you do other things. We need at least 30 spirit because we do need to run both of our reservations. Outside of that, you want as much energy shield, as much life, as much percent energy shield, as much spell skills, and then as much resistances or potentially stats as you can get on it. For a Seed of Cataclysm, you just want the highest rolls on the crit hit chance and the crit spell bonus damage, as well as the chaos res. For your rare ring, you just want a rare ring with high life, high rarity, because we don't need a lot of item rarity. A little bit makes a massive improvement on your loot, though. So make sure you do have a ring with at least 35% item rarity, and then resistances on it. And then your belt is resistances, armor, and life. I have this Rite of Passage Golden Charm because it literally just dropped. You do not need this. It's a super expensive charm, and I'm probably going to sell it because I don't really believe it brings that much value to the character. But if you want to just like push the limit to your character, this is a nice little bonus on your clear. For our jewels, we want cold damage, elemental damage, max energy shield, crit hit chance for spells, crit bonus damage for spells, crit hit chance, crit bonus damage. Like there's just a litany of mods that are all good on your jewels here. On our Heart of the Well, you want instant leech as much as you can get, plus something else useful on the Heart of the Well. And for on our Timeless Jewel here, we want to have a Timeless Jewel that is going to give crit bonus damage and or crit chance to the outside nodes. If you can get this in a medium ring as well, you can pick up a second node right here. Also, this is just a very cheap budget version of the Timeless Jewel that you're going to run. That is how we're going to get all of our items set up on the character. Now, For our skills, very straightforward. Life Remnants is our Blood Mage passive. We're going to get Harmonic Remnants and Remnant Potency. Again, on our Ascendancy node, this is very straightforward. We're going to take Vitality Siphon, Sunder the Flesh for crit, Grasping Wounds down to Crimson Power for survivability. Now, Sigil of Power, we're going to run Magnified Area, Prolonged Duration, Efficiency, and Rapid Casting. On our Elemental Weakness, we're going to run Heightened Curse and Focus Curse. I have it disabled in here, and I have the configuration set with the Curse, Penetration, and Exposure tied in here because POB can't calculate it. So we have it disabled here on purpose, but you will be running Elemental Weakness. Cast on Crit, we run an Arc Snap with Blind and Boundless Energy. If you have another node in here, you can put something that does damage as well. On Siphon Elements, we want Harmonic Remnants and Cold Mastery. On Spark, we're going to run Spark, Proj Acceleration, and Bitter Blindside. Adalui's Bloodletting and Prolonged Duration. There's not really an option here. On Frostbomb, we're running Harmonic Remnants, Cooldown Recovery, Spell Echo, and Overabundance. You would, in the sixth link on this, put Potent Exposure in here. And then on our... Well, why do we have Life Remnants twice? I don't know. Life Remnants up here. Sigil of Power obviously goes on your weapon swap. Now, on our passive tree, we'll take a little bit of time to go over our passive tree weapon swap stuff first. So our weapon swap stuff is in red, is tied to Spark. Red here. And then in green is tied to our Frost Bomb and our Curse. So we have Curse Magnitude, Curse Magnitude, Exposure, Strip Away here, and then more Exposure bonuses up here for Frost Bomb. Outside of that, our passive tree is really simple. You just run up the tree here and you take everything useful. As you're leveling, you just take everything useful. Go all the way up here, take all this useful stuff, come all the way down here, take all this useful stuff, come down here, take Zealot's Oath, which is good, come down here, take Blood Magic, which is good, and then across here and take useful stuff. Most of this is just generic increases in damage. We focus on crit bonus damage. You could instead, if you were having issues with mana cost, you can remove these nodes right here and come up here and go into Storm Charge, which is very strong. You can get rid of these nodes down here. Like if I was building the character, I would take probably these nodes last. I do want to point out something that is very important. Tides of Change and Preservation are the highest DPS nodes on the tree. The reason for this is because Spark can hit one time every 0.66 seconds. With both of those nodes on here, we have a skill duration on Spark based on, and this is wrong, I believe. Why is that not right? In the game, I don't have those nodes yet. No, I guess that is right. So we have a skill duration on Spark of 5.148. I think I had something else in there before. 5.148 divided by 0.66, which means our Spark hits 7.8 times plus the initial hit. And so in this version of build, that would be 8 hits per Spark cast. Tremendous boost to our damage versus normally you would get 4 hits per Spark cast. So those nodes are literally double damage on your character. Take them. We have so much proj speed and so many projectiles that it will never be a situation where something isn't hitting the target on that tick as long as you're spamming it out. So those are both huge bonuses to our damage. Make sure you're taking your preservation and your tides of change. So that's how we're going to get our skill tree set up. Now, if you have any questions over any of this, come by Twitch, come by YouTube, ask questions. I'm happy to answer them. We will include a link to both the low budget and the mid budget version of the build. We don't have a leveling guide in particular, but you can level 4, slap on a Widow Hail and a Quiver, and then upgrade your Quiver as you level and just go straight up the tree. There's nothing complex here. You can level with the build just the same way that you're playing it in the end game. You're going to use Frost Bombs and Sparks. When you get Spirit, you'll take the Spirit nodes that you can. It's very, very straightforward. Now, I don't see Siphon Elements here. Sorry. On Siphon Elements, this is the first one that you will take because you can't get access to cast on crit until 58. Siphon Elements is what we use to spawn cold remnants on freezing targets, and why we put so much emphasis on freezing the targets, and why we run Embitter on our Spark here, and on a low budget build, why we run Call of the Brotherhood. So do make sure you're focusing on the cold conversion of the skill. That is where you do get the most benefit from it. The damage difference between a cold infused spark at 3.5 million and a base spark at 2.6 million is phenomenal. So you do want to make sure that they're all cold infused. And this number down here, it's a relative number. We do more DPS than this, as you saw on our Xesht kill. He just melts away. This is a relative number. POE doesn't do these calculations correctly, and I've made some edits and changes to try to make the calculation a little bit more, a little bit closer to what the damage of the build is, but we use this as like a moving point. If something is increasing the damage, we know that's a good thing. If it's decreasing the damage, we know it's a bad thing. So don't hyper focus on what this exact number is. Just if you're using POB, changes you make that make the number go up are good, changes you make that make the number go down are bad. And so that's how you want to utilize POB for right now. Hopefully in the future, we will get a more sophisticated POB for POE2 where we can start relying on it for our damage numbers. I thank y'all very much for watching. I appreciate y'all. Have a wonderful day. Peace.